Getting that compressed eating window is one of the best and easiest things you can do, honestly, to dramatically improve your overall healing ability and lower your risk of developing cancer.
And so, so you mentioned insulin, but then also like A1C. I mean,
Yeah.
where's the perfect number for A1C in your
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah. So A1C, hemoglobin A1C, basically what that means is glycated hemoglobin. So what happens is when you have high blood sugar, so glucose, we use it for energy. We need it because our brain, our brain can run off of ketones or glucose, but it always needs some supply of glucose. At least 50 to 60% of its energy needs to come from glucose. So you're always going to have blood sugar. Now, the issue with blood sugar is that the glucose molecules will actually bind to proteins like hemoglobin, for example, and they'll damage the proteins. And so when we're looking at hemoglobin A1C, we're looking at what percentage of the hemoglobin, which is the binding mineral or the binding protein, I should say, binds to iron in our blood. And so what percentage are damaged? Okay. I like to see it 5% or less, right? 5.0 or less. Now you're not going to it's not going to be flagged on blood work until it's like up over 5.7, I believe. And then, they'll start to look at, okay, this is like a pre-diabetic condition. And usually 6.5 up over 6.5 is diabetic, right? It's where they're looking at for diabetic, but I like to see it a lot lower. Like if I see it 5.5, 5.6, I'm like, Now I always look at insulin. I want to make sure insulin's in a good spot too, right? But that's telling me that we're getting periods of time where blood sugar is going pretty high up, right? So ideally, we're getting that around 5.0 or under, okay? And I don't care, I've seen like mine at times has been like 4.5, right? Which is really low. And like other doctors never see that, but I feel great, right? I don't have hypoglycemia, right? So my body's actually very metabolically flexible. And that's really the key concept. We want the body to be really good at burning glucose, but also really good at burning fat. See, there's times when we need to burn glucose for energy, right? Like I said, we're always burning some level of glucose, but when we exercise, right? And this is the great thing about burning glucose is we don't need oxygen and we can create energy very quickly from glucose. We just don't produce a lot of energy, so we need to burn a lot of it. And we end up with a lot of metabolic waste, okay, and a lot of oxidation in the system. Some level of oxidation is fine because our body gets stronger, builds these endogenous antioxidant defense systems to protect the DNA, mitochondria. This is why exercise can be so beneficial. But if we're chronically in sugar burning mode, we're rusting our system from the inside out. So we also want the body to be really good at shifting back to burning fat for fuel. And so when we're at rest, or like, you and I just having a conversation here, should be burning primarily fat. When we're sleeping at night, we should be burning primarily fat with the vast majority of our cells in our body. And that's when we burn fat, we produce a lot more cellular energy and a lot less metabolic waste. So it's cleaner energy. And that's really the goal there. So we want to be good at burning glucose when we need to, right? But for the most part, we should be burning fat. We should be very good at switching back and forth. A lot of people, because they're eating a lot of these ultra processed foods, because they're eating often throughout the day, they're not moving their body very well, they're stressed out, not sleeping well. All those factors go into them being stuck in sugar burning mode and being really bad at burning fat for fuel. I think the recent statistics said something like over 90% of our population is metabolically inflexible and bad at burning fat for fuel. And when you're bad at burning fat for fuel, it's hard to go a longer period of time between meals because your body's not good at switching fuel source. It needs a continual supply of glucose. And when glucose starts to lower, you get cravings because your body can't switch into burning fat for fuel. So fasting seems like torture because you're like, oh my gosh, if I go more than 3-4 hours without a meal, I mean, I get really hangry, right? I just don't feel good. And that's, again, this sort of metabolic inflexibility. Now, the way to get over that is I say start with 3 meals a day, okay? 12-hour, fast overnight, 3 meals a day. Make sure you've got at least 30 grams of good quality protein in each of those meals, okay? Roughly somewhere between 15 to 30 grams or so of fat in the meal. Now, that's just going to depend on how well you break down fat. Like for me, I could do high amounts of fat in a meal. I feel great, right? And I feel really satiated. But some people, if they don't have a gallbladder, if they have very congested bile ducts in their liver, then if they consume even 20, 25 grams of fats, even if they're healthy, really healthy fats, they don't feel good, right? So what I found is that most people can do 15 grams without any issue, right? So you might start there, especially if you've had your gallbladder taken out or you've had liver issues or you haven't felt good when you've had higher amounts of fat. So start with 15 or so. And then, work your way up, build up, because the more healthy fats you can consume and feel good in the meal, the more you're going to be really satiated, right? And it's going to help you burn fat for fuel. And then, of course, make sure you're consuming nutrient rich fruits and vegetables, right? And so you get that in your meal, three meals during the day, right? No snacks in between. Okay. And then hydrate well between meals. Good hydration is key. In fact, a lot of times people have cravings because they're dehydrated or they're electrolyte deficient. And so if you're eating real foods, okay, and salting them to taste with good quality salt, then you should have the minerals you need. In some cases, I'll have people put like a little bit of salt on their tongue, just a good, like a Redmond's real salt or something like that, or a little bit in their water, right? And drink that. But if you do that between meals, that should reduce stress. You'll actually feel more energized. Your brain will function better, and you'll be able to go longer between meals. And that's key without feeling, hangry and having the hypoglycemic like effects. And so you just start with that, 3 meals, and then you just slowly, as you feel good with that, compress that eating window. So let's say you started at 7 a.m., you push it back to 8 a.m. Okay. Then you can push it to 9 or 10, and right, even get it into, that 8-hour eating window, or maybe even a 6-hour eating window. And a lot of people notice that they actually feel good doing 2 meals a day.